Hacks. My name is Shauna Arnott, and I am the founder of Haste and Hustle, and I am here with Fred Dimyan.
Correct.
Thank you. I was hoping to pronounce that correctly. And Fred is the CEO and co-founder of Potoo. And so thank you for joining us. It's been great. I just met Fred last night at a party, and we had a great chat. And so I was very excited that you were able to come down today and take some time with us and to share with my audience. And so I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and sort of where you started and how you've gotten to where you are, and we'll chat a little bit about what you do.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
So I started as an entrepreneur probably when I was 15 years old. My father was an entrepreneur, so I came from an entrepreneurial family. Started a couple businesses, and then most recently opened the business. I was in the technology space, opened the business selling on Amazon. Didn't know how good we were at it, and we grew to be about 31 people in a year and a half and got to be one of the largest marketplace sellers. The evolution to Potoo actually was caused by a friend of mine having an issue on Amazon. He's now my business partner, and his company had an issue on Amazon. He said, what do we do with this issue at his company? We went in there and sure enough fixed the issue for them, and we realized the issue was massive. We actually didn't necessarily want to start a business, but the opportunity was so massive that we said we had to start something about it. So it wasn't necessarily that we founded a business. This business actually found us, and it was an opportunity we could not ignore.
That's cool. Did it find you because it sort of spoke to your skill set and your passion, or is it just that you're just a good problem solver and you want to get in there? I know we talked about, last night we spoke about, being problem solvers and loving to create efficiencies and find all those things. Is that sort of where do you think it developed, and then you saw help, and that helped you see it?
Yeah, we didn't realize how large the problem was, so we saw this problem, and I actually didn't know how universal the problem was, that all manufacturers really at some level have an issue with what's going on online, and we just had a really unique set of skills to be able to identify that and solve that. So yeah, we look at it like it's a puzzle, and not everybody saw the puzzle pieces as we did, and as we solved the puzzle, it affected companies.
So maybe, I know you said we're going to chat a little bit about the Amazon selling market and how that works a little bit, and then, so maybe if you can sort of explain that a little bit, because I know for myself, I was, I'm not overly familiar with that, and so I'd love for my community and myself to even just learn a little bit more, and then maybe chat a little bit about what the problem is within that industry and how you work to solve it with Potoo.
Sure. So if you look at buying online, people love buying online. I love Amazon. You love Amazon, and so does everybody else. If you think of how large an Amazon is, there's about 110 million Prime members. That's over half of U.S. households. There's few things that over half of U.S. households agree on, and they actually agree on Amazon. So as a consumer, you love it. As a manufacturer, you don't necessarily like it. The things that make it great from a consumer perspective, a ton of variety. So just as an example, on Amazon, there's about 500 million different items for sale. That's an insane amount. If you look at a Walmart, it has about 120,000 unique items at a store. So a lot of variety, but few people understand the marketplace behind it. So there's about 5 million marketplace resellers across Amazon platforms in the world. That's a massive number. So it's a complex marketplace, and most of the time you're actually buying something on Amazon, you're buying from a third-party marketplace participants. Consumers don't always know that. For manufacturers, simple supply and demand, the more people you have in a market with the same demand, the more the price and everything else fluctuates.
That's how they kind of keep their prices down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then where does the, how do people take advantage of that system in order to create these problems? Or what is the problem that you were referring to earlier?
Yeah, so e-commerce and bad behavior, unfortunately, work really, really well together. Sometimes it helps the consumer. Sometimes when it helps the consumer, it hurts the manufacturer. So if you think of where people could buy items, people could buy legitimate items, people could buy counterfeit items, people could possibly steal items and then sell them on a marketplace. As a consumer, you just see it's Amazon and here's the item and I'm buying it. We actually identify for our manufacturers who's selling your items, what their likely source of inventory is, how much sales they've made, and then they're able to take action based on that. So the problem is that sometimes there's counterfeit items, there's less than new items, there's stolen items, and as a consumer, you might not even recognize. You buy an item online, it doesn't work well, you just might assume it's an inferior product, but in fact, it may be a counterfeit product.
Oh, interesting. And so your system works to eliminate that?
Correct. Yeah, we work to identify it, share information with our clients, and then start to work to eliminate that.
That's amazing. And so is that the entire system, or is there other branches of what you do, or?
That's the bulk of it. So, online brand protection, we're the best company in the world at it. We have about 500 brands that we manage. About 180 of the brands are worth over $1 billion. So it's a very large issue. We're the best in the world at attacking it. But yeah, we have some kind of offshoots to what we do, but that's based on client demand. So we'll manage like Walmart and eBay and other marketplaces, as well as give some additional information on what's going on in the marketplaces.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no. I'm not an idiot. I do know that there's certainly counterfeiting happening and people trying to take advantage of the system, but I didn't realize it was that big of a problem, I guess, within the retail market.
Yeah, it's a pretty big problem.
Under cybersecurity, is that sort of or is that aligned?
Yeah, it's not necessarily like hacking into a system, but it is more in the like brand protection space.
Right. Interesting. Well, I guess it's when you think about the old days and you had retail outlets, and there was the loss protection, market of people who would go and steal right from the store. So I guess they've just found a digital way to do it.
Exactly, and on that note, so imagine you could steal a trailer load of items.
Yeah.
Where would you sell it? You can't call up a Walgreens or Walmart and say buy a trailer load of items, but you could actually sell a trailer load that was illegally sourced on Amazon all day long, and sometimes that's exactly what happens.
Really? Wow, that's unbelievable. Well, I guess it's not unbelievable, but it's it's sad, really, that people are out there doing that. So that's great. I'm so glad that there's companies like yours doing that, and that's very interesting. So we'll certainly take you up and have a look at. Everyone have a look at that. It's Potoo.com?
PotooSolutions.com.
PotooSolutions.com, thank you. We'll link it below. So I'd love to get back a little bit to talking about your journey as an entrepreneur and sort of some advice that you'd love to share. I always like to ask seasoned entrepreneurs if they have a piece of advice that they'd love to share with emerging entrepreneurs.
That's a lot of stuff I've learned on the way, as I'm sure all entrepreneurs have. But everybody thinks the entrepreneurial journey is this great thing, but it's often this path that comes with a lot of development, a lot of learning, a lot of problems. Some people think they don't have a boss when they're an entrepreneur. The reality is, like, every one of my clients, I have 500 bosses in this case, and I'm really there to service them, and they pay my bills. So the fact that it's going to be an easy journey, I think people should not consider. If it was easy, everybody would be a successful entrepreneur. It is a grind, and you do have to work through things, but really in being resilient, I would say that's the important thing. So I was talking with another entrepreneur, and they're like, oh, every day's great. I'm like, I assume there's going to be 10 problems every single day. If there's 8, that's an awesome day. If there's 12, well, tomorrow will be better. But make this assumption that you're going to have to work through stuff, and not every day is going to be easy. It could be really fun in working through the challenges, but it's not always going to be a simple day.
Gary Vee always says, it's like being a CEO is like being a firefighter. You're always putting out fires, right? And trying to find solutions. And that's huge. I think we definitely all resonate with that. And I was speaking to another entrepreneur earlier, and he was saying how, talking about resilience as well. And I think, that's such a hugely important thing. And you're right. If we all knew how hard it was to be an entrepreneur when we started, I don't think we would know. I think you just have to be, excessively optimistic, as he said, but if you don't have that ability, then I think it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with the firefighter analogy, because even in, so we have about 60 people at the company, and some great people. So they're working through problems, but not every problem could be worked through, and some are escalated to me. So think of what a CEO gets all day long. It's high-level problems that can't be solved by competent people. So you not just have to be a firefighter, you have to be like a super firefighter. So it's definitely, I agree with that assessment.
The firefighters that wear all the equipment and climb up all the stairs.
Yep, and with a smile.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. So do you have any skill sets that you attribute in yourself that have helped breed your success?
I would say problem solving is a big thing. Logic, you really have to be like truthful. So in some organizations, like, you work for a large organization, or let's say, you're in school, you can get away with not doing things, properly. Maybe, you could talk to your teacher and schmooze them a little and get a good grade. Maybe if you're a politician, you could blame something on, the party before you or whoever's in office after you. But as an entrepreneur, if you do something well, you'll succeed and you'll profit. If you do something poorly, so there's really like a truth. To me, there's like this. You have to be true. There's no fluff in what you do or how you think, because fluff doesn't work out long term in a business environment. So you really kind of have to be true. And sometimes that does mean developing yourself and saying, okay, this is what I do that's good, this is what I do that's bad, here's my weaknesses, and really like being truthful with yourself and saying, I'm not going to be great at everything. In fact, I might be bad at most things, but I'm really good at those 3 things. I have to make sure that the things I'm not good at, either I balance out with other people or I build it up enough so it's not a negative, just have it be neutral. But the things that are really, I think, for me, that drive me, there's a few things I'm really good at. How much time could I focus on them and really drive that and not focus on the weaknesses, as long as it doesn't, pull me down. And then what makes you special? So what is the unique skill set you have as an individual that maybe you've been unique at it since you were a kid? Maybe it's, you're logical, or maybe you like problem solving, or maybe you're a people person. How can I take that skill, develop it a little further, and really have that, make me what's special as, a leader of a company? And don't try to be something you're not. It doesn't work out in the long term. You'll probably get frustrated and won't be as successful. Find what it is you're good at. And most people are good at, something or another, right? They're, something makes them special. Find that thing, really kind of dig deep and say, how could I be this kind of leader, not another kind of leader? And really learn from other entrepreneurs. I mean, the internet is a massive tool. So, YouTube, like your program, learning from other entrepreneurs. Everybody learns from mistakes, but they do not have to be your mistakes. Exactly. You could communicate with other entrepreneurs. You can read books and learn from other mistakes. Some people say you've got to learn it on your own. That's, other than not learning, that's the worst way to learn. If you're going to learn everything on your own, that's the opposite of school. That's the opposite of education. Education is trying to teach you from others' mistakes. So no different on an entrepreneurial perspective. Any problem you're going through, chances are somebody's been through a similar, maybe worse problem. How do they solve it? So really delve into that level of knowledge, whether it's on YouTube or books or people in the industry.
Fabulous advice, because you're right. We don't have to make the mistakes ourselves to learn them. I think if we sort of set the intention that we're going to read books on business, and we're going to watch videos, and we're going to speak to other entrepreneurs and ask lots of questions, and really sort of set ourselves up for success by doing those things, by being very open and honest and asking the hard questions right from the get-go. I think that absolutely helps. Avoid having to make the mistakes yourself, because I'll tell you, I've made all those mistakes, and so I would much rather, and that sort of fuels my passion for helping, because I don't want other people to have to make those mistakes. It's hard. I'm like, no, this is not necessary. Let's just, help people to learn them by just, hearing us speak about it. So,
And most people want to help. I mean, just like, most people would help if you ask. Some people don't want to ask because they either think they know it or they're embarrassed to ask. Don't be. A lot of successful people want to help other people. Plugging into that, a little bit of vulnerability, being vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, can you help me with this?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's funny, it wasn't until I'd gone through a couple of challenging situations and I started reaching out to other entrepreneurs that I really learned that. I remember reading an Entrepreneur magazine, and there was this guy who had gone through a similar situation that I'd gone through that was very challenging, and I was like, I want to phone him, and I just reached out to him on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere, And sure enough, he gave me his number and we had a great call, and now we're friends. And this guy gave me some of the best advice, and he's a very successful entrepreneur. And we just both happen to have gone through a similar challenge. And I thought, wow, this is wonderful. And I've seen that over and over again in my life and in the lives of friends and other entrepreneurs that I know, that when they do take the time to ask, it's often received very, compassionately. So I think that's great advice.
It is, and even as the person giving advice, there's a saying that I love: the best way to learn is to teach. As you're teaching, you almost like force yourself to learn or reinforce it, or build a logic behind it in a more solid way. So when people ask for advice, sometimes I'm getting more out of it than they are. It forces me to really think about it.
Even as I sit and do these interviews, I'm sometimes like, okay, take some notes for myself, and I think that's great. So thank you. So this show is called Hustle Hacks.
Yep.
And so as I mentioned to you, we love to ask people what their hustle hack is, and that can be anything from a software that you use, or a mindset trick that you have, or a book that you read, anything that's helped you grow your business or sustain your life, your work-life balance, or whatever it is that you'd love to share with my audience that you think could help.
So I'll share a story. So I was reading the Everything Store book, which is about Amazon, and in the book there was a reference to Jeff Bezos telling his management team that they need to read this book by Nassim Taleb. So not just like reading books, but reading books that the people you look up to have read. So you've heard the term like words long written, or books that have been around for a while, and sayings that have been around for a while, or philosophies that have been around for a while. There's a reason they've been around for a while. So kind of getting like a couple steps deeper. So in this case, I think there was a reference to Nassim Taleb, who wrote a book, and it was Antifragile. So I love this concept of like anti-fragility, right? And the concept, and I'll give it to you in like 30 seconds, that something's fragile. What is that? Let's say it's a piece of glass. What's the opposite of fragile? Most people think it's something that's solid and doesn't break. The opposite of fragile is actually, that's like saying the opposite of -1 is 0. Right. The opposite of -1 is +1. It's actually something that benefits from being shaken or disrupted. And you're like, what benefits from being shaken or disrupted? A human being does. If you're in bed and you're not moving, you're actually going to decompose. But if you're moving, like a tennis player's hand, their arm might be 30% more dense because it's hitting it. And it's the same way in business as you kind of go through those issues and go through those challenges. So for me, whenever I go through a challenge, I always know there's going to be an end. Like in a week, this problem is going to be gone. How do I want to look back at it in a week? Do I want to have went through it positively and learned and fought my way through it, or do I want to be upset at it? So I know the time's going to pass. So I almost like look at the end of it, and then look back and say, okay, how would I have wanted to act within here? And then realize like through that resistance, I'm actually getting stronger and stronger. And really, like for me, I realize I will be as successful as the amount of kind of pain I could tolerate. And as you kind of get better at things, you can tolerate a little more pain. And by pain, it's not necessarily bad. I mean, it's a challenge, and to me, boredom's the real enemy, not necessarily pain. Pain, it's like working through problems and solving them. There's a nice sense of like solution at the end of it, and a good feeling. So for me, that kind of gets me through the grind, and it gets me through it in a positive way. But really working through problems and having like a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Some people, there's no fixed mindset. Like in any environment in business, you're either growing or you're shrinking. There's no in between. You might say, well, I'm exactly flat as I was last year. Well, that's a negative. Time has passed. So you're actually worse off. So you're either growing or you're shrinking. So really to have that mindset, how do I continue to grow? How do I just get a little bit better, like every single day? And how do you get better? By challenging yourself a little, by growing through problems. That's what gets you better. Sometimes when you're in it, you're like, okay, I'm going through those problems. But the reality is like, and I love the expression, like nothing fails like success. When you're successful and you're doing something really well, it's like, you're not improving yourself. You're not improving yourself at all. When you fail a little, it actually makes you a lot more resistant. And for me, like my heroes are the people who have been through things and been through challenges and worked through it. Like let's say Jeff Bezos, the Kindle, the Fire phone failed, but through that came Alexa, and stuff has developed that's more than made up for it. In fact, what's really interesting is like the marketplace. So the Amazon marketplace was actually started to compete with eBay. It was started to sell. It was started to actually sell used items on Amazon. They realized nobody wants to buy used items at Amazon. But they took that platform and they actually developed this massive marketplace, which now makes Amazon one of the most valuable companies in the world. So that failure, if you look at it properly and you kind of grind through it and you realize like the anti-fragile mentality, like I'm actually going to grow stronger because of this failure. I think most people look at failure and they say, I'm now more afraid to do it next time. You should actually be less afraid to do it next time, because that failure, if it taught you something, made you less likely to fail next time, not more likely.
Everything you need to know what not to do and how to, and what you need to know how to fix it. So
exactly.
In a positive way.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of it's a process. So it's not like, okay, you've got a philosophy. It's like you've got to reinforce it just like anything else. You don't go to the gym once, you go to the gym pretty frequently and you reinforce it. So especially as an entrepreneur, there's going to be ups and downs. You have to be positive throughout the whole thing and really kind of reinforcing and like living that positive philosophy through your life. For me is definitely helped.
That's awesome. I love that. What's that book?
Antifragile.
Antifragile. I'll look that up for sure. Thank you. I actually have one more question, and I know that I didn't, ask you this before, but I'd love it if you do have something else on top of your head that might be helpful to my audience. If they're, if they are on Amazon, or their brand is selling on Amazon, do you have any tips or tricks that they can to sort of implement easily that will help them to set themselves up to prevent anything kind of, counterfeiting or anything like that happening, early stage?
Sure. There are some tools that Amazon and the marketplaces give you to be able to control your brand. So there's something called a brand registry. If you're on Amazon and you have your own brand registered with Amazon, so you actually have the ability to help police it a little better. Monitor your products. Realize that Amazon is not just a place to sell items. Amazon is your catalog. So when people look at it, your item, and they see how it is, they're going to Amazon more than your own website. We deal with a lot of large manufacturers. All of them have more volume on their items on Amazon than they do on their own website. So look at it like your catalog, and how is it optimized, and would you'll buy the item? Does it make sense to you as a consumer? So a good example is, a ball. You sell a ball on Amazon. What does the image look like? A 2-inch ball looks like a 2-foot ball, right? So you're putting some perspective on that and really looking at it, not like you look at it in retail, because in retail, you're seeing it, you could feel it, you could touch it, you could compare it to something else. But looking at it as, if I could only see the item online, is it described and marketed in the way that is useful? Don't assume people know it a lot. You're attracting a lot of new consumers on Amazon that might not know your brand, their products, to really have it started a blank slate and say, does it make sense? And really optimize for e-commerce and Amazon first, so from a catalog perspective. You optimize for that, and then for brick and mortar second, if your products are sold in brick and mortar.
Wow, that's great advice. Thank you.
Sure.
That's awesome. Okay, well that is the end of our show. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Hustle Hacks, and thank you, Fred, for being here. It was so great to meet you, and I'm so glad that you were able to share with my audience. And again, everyone, check out PotooSolutions.com, and thank you.
Thank you.